There is a place at the edge of our solar system where the sun is so distant it looks like nothing more than a bright star. Not a sun, not warmth. Just another point of cold light in an ocean of cold light. And somewhere in that darkness, a small heart-shaped world drifts in silence. Pluto, named after the god of the dead, and perhaps no name in all of human history has ever been more accurate. Because here is what nobody tells you when they talk about Pluto. The problem isn't getting there, the problem is what getting there does to you. By the time you arrive, you won't be human in the way you were when you left. And the journey home, if you were foolish enough to attempt it, would finish what the outbound trip started. Pluto isn't just a destination, it's a one-way door, and the universe doesn't hand out keys. Start with the number 7.5 billion kilometers. Your brain will try to process that and quietly give up. So let's make it real. Light, the fastest thing in the universe, traveling at 300,000 kilometers per second, takes more than 6 hours to travel from Earth to Pluto. A radio signal, your only lifeline to home, would take 6 hours to arrive and 6 hours to return. If something went wrong, if an alarm screamed through the cabin, if someone collapsed, if the hull cracked, you would send a distress call and wait 12 hours for a response. And that response would be words, just words, because no rescue ship would be coming. Nothing could reach you in time. You would be the most alone any human being had ever been in the history of our species. The fastest spacecraft ever launched, New Horizons, left Earth in 2006 carrying only cameras and instruments. No food, no water, no sleeping quarters, no human heartbeat. It weighed 478 kilograms, and it still took 9.5 years to reach Pluto. 9.5 years, and it wasn't even slowing down. It screamed past Pluto at 49,600 kilometers per hour, captured its images in a single, breathless afternoon of data collection, and kept going into the dark. A human mission would be different. The weight of keeping people alive, oxygen systems, water recycling, food, medical equipment, radiation shielding, exercise machinery, psychological support structures, spare parts for every conceivable failure, would make the spacecraft orders of magnitude heavier. Heavier means slower. Slower means longer. We are not talking about 9 years anymore. We are talking about something closer to 14 to 20 years, one way, with technologies we do not currently possess. And even with technologies we can reasonably imagine building within the next century, the math does not get gentle. It only gets less catastrophic. So the journey begins, and the moment it does, the clock starts on something that cannot be stopped. You can support us by liking, subscribing, and telling us which country you are watching from. The first thing that starts killing you is invisible. Beyond Earth's magnetic field, beyond the thin, invisible cocoon that has protected life on this planet for billions of years, space is filled with radiation. Not the kind from an X-ray machine. Galactic cosmic rays, particles accelerated by dying stars, by supernovae, by some of the most violent events in the universe, stream through deep space constantly. They move close to the speed of light. They pass through spacecraft walls the way sunlight passes through glass. They pass through you. On Earth's surface, you absorb roughly 2.4 millisieverts of radiation per year. Astronauts on the International Space Station absorb about 150. In deep space, the number climbs to between 600 and 1,000 millisieverts per year, every year, with no ceiling and no respite. NASA's career radiation limit for astronauts is 1,000 millisieverts total. A single one-way journey to Pluto would expose a crew to somewhere between 9,000 and 20,000 millisieverts. That is not a limit being exceeded. That is a limit being atomized. The DNA in every cell of your body accumulates damage it cannot repair fast enough. Cancer probability doesn't just increase, it becomes, after enough time, a near certainty. But cancer is almost the secondary concern, because cosmic radiation does something more immediate, more quietly terrifying. It damages the brain. Studies conducted on astronauts and on mice exposed to simulated galactic cosmic rays show measurable cognitive decline, degraded memory, impaired decision-making, slowed processing, anxiety that doesn't resolve. These are not side effects. They are the brain being restructured by invisible bombardment. By the time a crew reached Pluto, their minds would be measurably different from the minds that left Earth. Quieter perhaps, slower, like a book with pages torn out mid-sentence. And there is no shielding solution. The particles are too energetic. Thick metal walls actually generate secondary radiation when struck, making things worse. You cannot armor your way out of this. The universe simply charges a price for crossing its distances, and the currency is biological. While the radiation works, the silence works too. The human body evolved under the constant, invisible supervision of gravity. Every step you take sends signals through your skeleton. Every time your heart beats, it works against the downward pull of a planet. Gravity is not just a force, it is a language your body speaks constantly, and every bone, every muscle, every chamber of your heart is fluent. In weightlessness, that language goes silent. Bones begin to lose density at approximately 1 to 2% per month. That sounds slow until you do the arithmetic. After 1 year, you've lost 12 to 24%. After 5 years, you've lost 60 to 100%. The skeleton is not a rigid permanent structure. It is a living tissue, constantly being broken down and rebuilt. Remove the reason to rebuild it, and the body stops. Your femur, the strongest bone in your body, capable of supporting the weight of a car, becomes something closer to chalk. The kind of bone that fractures not from impacts, but from the simple act of standing. Astronauts on the International Space Station, spending 6 months in orbit with 2 mandatory hours of exercise every single day, still come back with measurable bone loss that sometimes never fully reverses. Some never regain their original density. And they spent 6 months, 400 kilometers up, with emergency return capability at all times. The muscles follow the same collapse, the legs, the back, the core, all of it designed to fight a gravitational battle that no longer exists. After years in weightlessness, the legs become vestigial. Not metaphorically, literally. The muscle fibers transform, the mass disappears, and what remains would not support a body standing upright in Earth's gravity without catastrophic failure. And then there is the heart. The heart is a muscle. And like every other muscle on a spacecraft bound for Pluto, it begins to shrink. Studies show astronauts lose up to 20% of their cardiac mass during extended missions. The heart adapts to its easier workload by becoming smaller, weaker, more suited to a weightless world. Blood volume drops. The circulatory system reorganizes itself around a new reality. Astronauts returning from just 6 months on the ISS frequently experience orthostatic intolerance, dizziness, fainting, the inability to stand without their blood pressure plummeting. Their hearts, weakened and diminished, cannot push blood upward against gravity fast enough. After 14 years, the heart would not struggle to perform that task. It would be incapable of it. There are other things the silence does that we don't talk about enough. The eyes change shape. In weightlessness, cerebrospinal fluid, the liquid that cushions the brain, redistributes. Pressure builds behind the eyes. The optic nerve swells. The eyeball itself flattens. This condition, called spaceflight-associated neuroocular syndrome, has already been documented in astronauts after months in space. Some experience permanent vision damage. After years, permanent damage is not a risk. It is a trajectory. The immune system weakens. Dormant viruses reactivate. The Epstein-Barr virus, the varicella zoster virus that causes chickenpox and shingles, herpes simplex, all have been found to reactivate in astronauts during space missions, shed in saliva and urine, alive and active in a body that can no longer suppress them effectively. The gut microbiome shifts. The vestibular system, the body's internal compass that tells you which way is up, becomes confused and eventually begins rewiring itself around the absence of a gravitational reference. Sleep cycles destabilize. The immune and endocrine systems fall out of rhythm with biological clocks that no longer have a sunrise to anchor them. By the time a crew reach Pluto, the human beings inside that spacecraft would be fundamentally biologically different from the humans who boarded it on Earth. Not in poetic metaphor, in clinical, measurable, irreversible physiology. And then they arrive. Pluto, the world with a heart. Literally, the vast nitrogen ice plain called Tombor Regio is shaped like a heart, pale and luminous against the darker surrounding terrain, as if the planet itself has something to say about the cost of reaching it. The surface temperature is -233 degrees Celsius. That is close to absolute zero. The coldest temperature theoretically possible in the universe is -273. Pluto sits 11 degrees above oblivion. Any exposed surface would freeze instantly. Breath would crystallize before it left your lips. The atmosphere, if you can call it that, is a thin, tenuous veil of nitrogen, methane, and carbon monoxide. It is not breathable, it is barely even measurable, with a surface pressure roughly 100,000 times thinner than Earth's. There is no liquid water. There may be a subsurface ocean, kept liquid by the pressure and remnant heat of Pluto's rocky core, but it lies beneath kilometers of ice. There is nothing on the surface a human body could use. No air, no warmth, no food, no shelter that the environment itself provides, and Pluto's gravity is only 6% of Earth's, not 38% like Mars, 6%. That is so low that a slow jog would send you floating above the surface. It is gravity barely distinguishable from weightlessness, which means that even on arrival, even standing on another world, the body continues its long, quiet dissolution. Now imagine turning around, imagine deciding to go home. To return to Earth from Pluto requires decelerating from interplanetary velocity, escaping Pluto's gravity, calculating a return trajectory that accounts for the positions of every planetary body along the route, and then accelerating back toward a sun that is nothing but a bright star from here. All of that requires fuel. Enormous quantities of fuel that would need to have been carried from Earth that entire time, adding mass that required more fuel to move in the merciless spiral of the rocket equation. And even if you solved all of that, even if the propulsion worked perfectly, if the navigation was flawless, if nothing broke in 14 years of operation, the crew returning to Earth would be arriving in bodies that Earth no longer fits. Bones too fragile to stand, muscles too atrophied to walk, a heart too small and too weak to push blood to a brain, fighting Earth's gravity. For the first time in decades, eyes damaged, immune systems compromised, cognitive function altered in ways that may never fully heal. The re-entry alone, the G-forces of atmospheric braking, could fracture a skeleton made brittle by 14 years without gravity's insistence. The journey back would not be a homecoming. It would be a different kind of dying, slower perhaps, but no less certain. The universe is not hostile to us. It is simply indifferent. It does not care about our ambitions or our engineering or our longing. It operates by laws that were written before life existed, and those laws do not make exceptions for curiosity. Pluto will wait. It has been waiting for 4.5 billion years, out there in the dark, past the edge of everything we know, patient, cold, beautiful in a way that requires distance to appreciate. And perhaps that is where it belongs, not as a destination, as a reminder that there are places in this universe so far from us that reaching them costs everything, and some prices are too high to pay